Welcome to all the high vibrational beings that resonate with my channel. I'm laughing because this is my third attempt at trying to get this taped. And so I am planning to speak on self-care this evening. It is so important and it is so hard for somebody to learn if you've never done it your whole life. And there is going to be a group of us that have never learned how to self-care. So learning how to integrate self-care is something that will take time and practice, but it is something that you want to start changing shifting your paradigm as far as trying to see it as something that you need to start integrating in your daily life every day, all day. And you'll be able to, you can learn how to build up to that, because if you're coming from a position where you've never known how to self-care and it was thrown back in your face as being selfish or lazy, that means you grew up in a toxic, dysfunctional, emotionally immature, narcissistic, karmic family. And with potential psychopaths and sociopaths, you never know, but the thing is that it is the thing that people that are resonating with my channel, I'm going to I'm going to showcase a portion of my life where I started to integrate self-care and how the universe was beginning to reflect back at me manifestations. And then go into explaining how when I accidentally got tripped out of using self-care on a daily due to karmic family members reemerging back into my life and re-triggering that old programmed way of living, which therefore can, trigger you, jump you right out of your self-care flow state mode. When that happens, you have to become aware. And I was able to see that only due to the fact, that the universe allowed me those first 2 years of my healing to be uninterrupted, where I could be in this super intense, amazing focus of just daily, beautiful spiritual grind, where, it was just everything. I was teaching myself how to self-care because the universe opened up 2 years for me in my life where I could figure out what that looked like. And for me, what I needed to do is first of all, I had to separate myself from my family. And I didn't understand why, but I do now. Now that I understand that I was in a narcissistic, dysfunctional, toxic family, and I was swimming through them all, that of course I didn't know how to self-care. Any attempt I would have ever made would have definitely been cut right off as you're being lazy or you're being selfish. So you wouldn't have been able to do that. So this goes back again to how my higher self was guiding me in the beginning stages of my healing and guided me to leave my family, because I wasn't yet awakened to the fact that they were part of what was holding me down. So it's interesting because I hope that when I am speaking about what I did with myself in the beginning and then later on in the process, how I was able to see how the universe guided me so gracefully, even though at times, it doesn't feel graceful as it's happening, but you knew that there was a purpose, you knew there was a reason, and you find other reasons why along the way, but to see the ultimate of, you're like, whoa, that's why that happened, and that's why that had to happen. Again, that's why I had to separate from my parents, was so that I could self-care, because without self-care, as an empath or a high or for some of you, I'm an but as an empath and a highly sensitive, intuitive, spiritual guide, light worker, generational trauma / curse breaker, you need 100%, you need self-care. It needs to be in your life same way as breathing does, every day, all day. When I was able to utilize and integrate self-care into my daily life for 2 years, I mean, the universe was, I was in flow state so beautifully. I had mentioned in that message that I was crying every day, but it was the best 2 years of my life. And it was because I was crying every day, because I was releasing all that no longer served me to allow room and space for the highest version of myself to integrate. And I didn't even understand what was happening back then, right? So when I speak on video now, I will be only referencing my previous experiences as examples, as seeds to plant for some of us that maybe need to see examples. I was somebody that I wish I could have heard more examples. I am just a learning style where I need that. 80% of us are kinesthetic learners, and I need that hands-on. I need to see, I need to feel, I need to understand. And I know that's not necessarily, it is about going in, but there's also other ways, and for those of us that are in this sensitive, highly sensitive, empathic place, self-care is vital and necessary and mandatory for everyone, but is super mandatory for an empath and a highly sensitive, period, end of story. Because I've now seen myself in beautiful flow state / self-care state. And then I saw myself trigger out of it for a minute, unconsciously, and just, because of old programming that kind of tried to grab back on, because there was still more to release. And that's what the universe was explaining to me at that moment. But then later, when I reintegrated, going, oh, whoa, yep, holy cow, I got a little off track there. That's okay, no worries. Just hop back on once you see it, And that's what I did. And self-care allows you to be strong in the powers that you have. And being able to see the powers that exist within you and how powerful you truly are and how strong you are. This path that you are on, and I am on, and we're all on, this path, if you resonate with this and you're watching this still right now, you are doing such an amazing job. Just know that. I am sending that out 1,000-fold to everybody who is watching this at this point and who is an intentional, awakening, high vibrational light worker. Self-care. Okay, so I think I mentioned that this is the other thing, if I didn't mention this yet, and if I did, I'm sorry. I've tried to tape this 3 times like I mentioned. So another great example is self-care, you have to care for yourself before you can try to support others. And if once you do learn to self-care for yourself, you will resonate and magnetize back at you those that do the same. And you will continue to manifest people that don't self-care until you learn how to self-care. So you don't want that type of person, because that's not a helpful person. Okay, I mean, if in the process of trying to rise into the highest version of yourself is all I mean. So when you're on an airplane and you're getting ready to take off and they are explaining what to do with the mask when it comes down, right? And they say, put it on yourself first before you put it on another. That is another great analogy of self-care, So same concept. Okay, just to try to get my experience out of the way here really fast so that, because I will never speak on something that I have never done or experienced or put myself in as my own research project. I am self-taught intuitive guide. That's what I am. And so for both animals and humans. So I started off the healing journey where I had to leave my family. And even though that first 3 years was spent running from that con man, the next couple of years after that is when I start the healing process. That's when I fall into flow state. That's when I'm trying to find out my true authentic self, truly learn who I was for the first time in 40 years. Like down to the favorite color, And so then I was learning how to self-care. And it is hard when when you're trained to think that it's bad and it's wrong, because the narcissist, the unhealed, but basically what the narcissist is an unhealed being who, if they continue to stay in that narcissistic place, is basically saying they continue to stay unwell. The longer that they stay there, the worse that it's going to be for them. That the only difference between that and where I'm at right now is because I could have gone down that path. Apparently I had given myself the option, path A or path B. And I chose to be true to myself. Which, being the empath and the highly sensitive, having feelings, being able to feel others, wanting to explore that and explore unconditional love, like wanting to come back to who I am, who we are, was way more exciting, right? I don't know. That's for me, that's way more exciting. So when I started to learn how to self-care, it was hard. So I'm not going to lie when I am saying that this is an important thing to do. If you resonate with this channel, then just know it's not an easy path to learn to self-care, but it has to be integrated. It's not optional. At least if you want to, like, it has to happen. If you have to breathe every day, self-care has to happen every day. So you just give yourself, so if I go back into that like time period and I try to remember how, like I was mentioning, flow state and my higher self just kind of took over, and I cultivated the perfect work environment, and I didn't have to be around anybody all day long, just animals and limited people, and in my time and space did I have to have. So this made it a lot easier for me. Now you could cultivate that type of thing too. You just have to, I started kind of putting it out there to the universe, like, oh, I should be working with animals because they would be animal therapy. And, I don't fear them at that time. Like I feared, humans at the time. So to me, it made sense. Like if I have to have something 3D at the moment until I can figure out how to, get my soul's purpose business on the way, well, then I'm cultivating this business that is going to allow me to be able to still heal on the job while I'm making money and be excited to go to my job and grow and learn and research still and heal, all of it. So every day I'd wake up and it was every minute I had an ability to cultivate self-care for myself. Now, self-care, the self-care we're definitely doing for ourselves instead of, yes, I had to go to a job to make money. And that's why I talk about all this, is because I'm sure a lot of you that resonate with this channel are going to be in that position where maybe you're trying to get your business, your soul's purpose business off the ground. But you're still, one leg in 3D reality, one leg in 5D. And so you're trying to kind of and we're gonna be there. That's what, I think my mission is to help guide people from that transition from 3D to 5D, because that's what I've been experiencing, and that is something that is different for this group of people that resonate with this. Okay, so enough about me trying to explain this. I know you get this if you're watching me. So anyways, it was beautiful. So when I wasn't at work, the things that, again, my higher self would want me to do, it was a lot of things. Like my higher self was always reconnecting me with my little self, and I was doing a lot of therapy around my little self at that time as well. So it all kind of went hand in hand, and a lot of that creative stuff that had been shoved way down, way deep down, and locked with about 8 different locks on the door to not come out. Don't poke your little head out. I could get in trouble if you poke your head out, And so when the time came for me to be able to create and do things that I always wanted to do, that's exactly what I did. That's self-care. Self-care may look like just sleeping and laying down and relaxing, because as people like ourselves who have been in survival mode all of our lives, you need to take a break. In fact, the first 2 years, now that I think back on it, and I forgot about this, that first year, I think I just slept. Because you got to remember, the 3 years previous, I was running. I moved 12 times in 3 years, and running for my life from, gang stalking and then this con man and human trafficking. And then prior to that, I was living with my dysfunctionally toxic, abusive family, karmic, family members, who that was, always, that was survival mode from as long as I can remember my first memory. And probably before. I've had some therapy sessions where I remembered, I think, into the womb, when we were trying to remember how far back I can remember trauma. And one of my sessions took me back to a womb, whether it was my aborted baby at that time, because we were also doing some work around my abortion. But then it could have also been me in the womb, because when I look back on it, and now knowing the story about what happened between my mom and my potential dad and a potential other dad, there was a lot of chaos. And then knowing that there was mental illness in the family and so much, sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse. I mean, every abuse, and so the odds, and every therapist agreed with me on this, the odds that I experienced something while in the womb is pretty much 100%. So for me, really, it was 40 years that I had been in survival mode. That's a long time to have your cortisol levels up that high. I needed to sleep. And so what that first year of self-care looked like was me taking time to literally sleep and rest. And I was exhausted once I finally felt safe. Once I finally felt like I had a safe place. Oh, it felt amazing. I remember I was and I just would lay in bed, I'd get home from work with my cats and we'd just cuddle up and I'd just be like, okay, I'm going to be okay doing this. But I would have to talk myself into it, that this is okay. I felt like I should be doing this. I should be doing that. And, because that's how I had been programmed my whole life. Move, 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 go, 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 go. And if you sit down, you're lazy or you're selfish. Boom. And so, nope. I was I know better. I knew from going through my massage therapy schooling earlier in my journeys that this was something I had to start integrating. And that's when I really started getting some seeds being planted about it. I'm like, what's this self-care thing? What is this self-care thing you speak of? Speak more. It sounds intriguing. but also mysterious. So anyways, yeah, I slept. And so self-care can be that. Self-care is just doing what you want to do for you. And that's hard as a people-pleasing, coming from that, sensitive, people-pleasing survival, kind of complex PTSD space from the past. When you're coming out of that, I kind of just lost where I was going to go. Hold on. Okay, so what am I going to do for me? What do I want? And that's what I was trying to say is trying to think back on that. It's hard. Again, I faced a lot of hurdles in and I'm still learning, and this is years later now, from that, well, 7 years later. And the universe gave me my ultimate lesson in this. And I know that's why I had to have that first 6 years of this hard hermit time, just away, because I knew being around people that I was learning basically how to be a human for the first time in my life at 40. Because more or less had numbed out for 20 years previous. I mean, and then even so, the younger I was, I just wasn't, I was really unawakened the earlier we fall back or we go back. Oops, here, sorry, hold on one sec. Sorry about that. My laptop needed to be charged. So what I was saying was that it's something that you have to definitely be conscious. You have to be aware and be intentional about it every day. Once you start doing it, you really like it. So when you get taken out of it, it feels weird. It feels weird to get to reprogram yourself into it. And then once you kind of get flowing with it, you're like, I like this. This is nice. This is how it was supposed to be like my whole life. I should have been doing for me, not for everybody else first, and then just forgetting myself because I was either too exhausted to get to myself or didn't have enough time in the day. I'm sure people recognize that. And that's the thing is that I got to a place where I was stoked. Sorry, hold on one sec. Sorry about that. I was saying I was stoked because I had been in this 6 year hermit beautiful healing bubble that I ended up having to leave about almost a year ago now, where the universe needed me to see something to complete these first stages of my healing so that I can ascend appropriately and release appropriately. And this was when I was reintegrated back into my family, my dysfunctional toxic family. And so I had a good 6 years under me before that happened, which I wasn't sure if I was ready. And then I thought, when I finally made the decision to take that step and reintegrate myself back into the family, not knowing that they were as toxic and dysfunctional as I found them out to be, was very blind to this. But when I got reintegrated, or when I decided to reintegrate, the first person that, sorry, I'm changing the color. The first person that I ended up seeing was my mom first, and her chaotic, manic bipolar energy with her, the insane amounts of addictions, codependencies, drinking, cigarette smoking, and who knows what else. But that's what I know from visual. But just all that was so intense to be around from somebody that learned how to slow down. And it was like watching somebody go in fast motion, like somebody had hit the fast forward button. And I knew it felt weird and, felt uncomfortable to be around. But I felt like hopefully my energy would help calm hers down. See, this is, the empath, the person that wants to help everybody, not realizing that not everybody wants to be helped. And I knew this. I wasn't trying to force anything at all. But I should have been a little more protective of my energy when I went into this. I kind of got a little flimsy with it. I recognized what was happening. I felt it. You could feel it the first, minute of being around her. But, as the days went on, I kind of said, well, this is the excuse I kind of gave myself was she's just so excited too. And the first couple of weeks before it got really weird from her when she attempted to try to punch me, it happened where I kind of gave the excuse of, I'm reintegrating around her. I want to be able to spend some time, and I know her energy is not the energy, but maybe I'm supposed to be like learning how, using this to learn another level of how to create my boundaries. Well, it technically was, but again, I just got a little too flimsy. This is the inexperience of not, this is how we're tripping through our healing. And I've tripped my entire way through my healing in moments like this. And that's why I tell my experience and I'm transparent with my truth and my journey to hopefully just give some of you an idea of what this can look like. Because for me, again, the reason I say this is I wish somebody would have been a little more transparent like I'm being. This would have helped me tremendously. And I feel like I can't be the only person. So again, let me jump back in here. So when that night my mom went to go hit me and punch me when her and her boyfriend were all drunk and she's all manicked out and she goes to hit me and swings, and that's the night I went, oh, whoa, I gotta step back here because, she's now out of control because she couldn't remember it because she was in what I call a manic bipolar blackout. This is something I call it because I've seen it so many times on so many different people. And that's just my interpretation of it. So, and where they can't remember then. And so she obviously doesn't remember, but, and I tried to talk to her about it the next day and I didn't get a lot of good feedback on it. So I just chose to decide that it was time for me to be more protective of my boundaries at that point. And that I realized too, I was like, oh my God, I haven't been doing a lot of the self-care daily stuff that I would typically do, which, included at the time, whether people want to call it mantras, prayers, meditation, guided meditation, grounding time with Mother Earth and the elementals outside. I had been doing a little bit, but not as much as I had been previous, and spending more time, like I was spending a lot of time around that chaotic energy and not allowing time to let that release. Also not setting up, realizing that I had not maybe set up proper boundaries that I attempted to. But as a narcissist always will, they don't believe in boundaries. So when you give them boundaries, and if they're your family and you're trying to give them boundaries for the first time, they're not going to take that too kindly. And so at least she didn't. And that's, I think, what was happening that night when she went to punch me, because I was setting boundaries. And that was not that did not make her happy. So anyways, I chose then at that time to add in. So one of the things that I started saying, I'm going to go and take an e-bike ride every morning to go out and meditate and, do my prayers and do my mantras and, do yoga. And, it's adding things like yoga and Tai Chi, whatever, going out somewhere to paint or read a book or, listen to a podcast, listen to your favorite guide coach, research, information that is going to help with creating more wisdom and knowledge for you and awakening and understanding and who you are as a person, as a being, as a light being, energy. So I decided I was going to start taking the e-bike out every day and starting on this journey and trying to stay away from her as much as possible. Her and her boyfriend. And at the time, it was definitely not meant to be harmful or hurtful to her. It was to help me. That was a survival thing. Plus, it was also, it was survival, but it would have been survival back in the day. It was called self-care now for me. It was like, I need to jump back into self-care. And I don't, I don't care if she's going to have any like opinion on this. This is not her life. And I am not that little girl anymore that is going to allow myself to care about that anymore and contour my life because of that thought process of hers. This is my life now. So that is what I'm going to focus on. So along my, initial journeys on that first day, I'm totally in sync with my higher self. And, my higher self rode me right up into a animal shelter, and that's where I started daily dog walking on the beach at the animal shelter, which was such a beautiful, like to be able to volunteer at an animal shelter. Oh, I recommend this in the process if you have the time and have the ability, because these dogs and the cats, if you can, spend time with the cats too. These animals just need, to see the love. And even though they're being kept safe in these shelters, that's scary for a lot of them. And what better way to heal your trauma than to help another animal that is dealing with a trauma? It's so rewarding beyond belief. And so I started doing that, and so I was able to do this while this chaos was trying to, explode all around me. And after it tried to kind of pull me back in. Okay. And it was interesting because I will let you know this, when I was doing this, I was doing the same thing every day. And that's what it is. It's as simple as that. But a narcissistic person that's unwell, is still very sick and unawakened, is not going to see this as you doing something good. They're going to think that you are doing something nefarious, or they're going to make it up that you are, because they don't understand what you're doing. They're going to try to say, that you're just doing things. They're going to project all the things that they're doing within themselves onto you, basically. Kind of like a cheater, somebody who cheats and then calls out their partner for cheating. That's a narcissist, basically, with their unhealed issues. Any false narratives they put out there are their own, that's projecting their own issues, their unhealed issues within themselves and all their addictions and issues, and they just put them onto somebody else and slap a story on that, and there you go. Now who's gonna believe it, right? So but the whole point of me saying this is that there is going to be pushback. I mean, I was just living my life in flow state and trying to self-care. That should not have been a problem for any person. Like, people should be excited for other people when they learn how to do that and are doing that for themselves. This is why I'm telling everybody, because I want to see more people doing this. We need to start integrating this into the collective energy more and more and more. And the more of us that awaken to this, the more the collective energy will grow into this, therefore changing the whole energy of the matrix. At least one way to try to do it, So, anyways, so it definitely got under my mom's skin, apparently. And, the people that she was around, because they were all narcissists, they were all very unhealed. It was those 50 plus communities where it's just really 99.9% of unhealed people living out the rest of their lives as their younger traumatized child. And so they were just feeding her more garbage, and she gets to the explosion on the day of my birthday and then calls the cops when I'm just laying in bed sick. Because that's what you do to your daughter when she's laying in bed sick, is just call the cops on her birthday. And so, so then I am, fast forward now, within a day, I'm back in my home state, around my brother and sister-in-law, thinking because my brother used to be super chill and just very mellow and even keeled. But my sister-in-law, she's the narcissist brought into the family. Pardon me. My brother married Freudianly appropriately. And what happened is when I was living with them, because she is so unhealthy and so well in her body and her family and everything, that when I tried to come in and first do with them like I did with my mom, I tried to overgive. I was helping my sister-in-law do her job. She'd be making money, I'd just be giving her more like help, which I felt I wanted to do that. But did I ever get a thank you on that? No. But that's not what a narcissist does. So you understand not to expect that. But what happened is that once I started to realize that I was getting pulled into that again by another narcissist wanting me to go, 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 I was like, okay, because so I had just went, oh, I'm coming out of flow state and self-care coming out of it to go back in. I don't know why I'm trying to show you with visual. Basically, just I'm coming out of it, trying to go back into it, and then go home, and I get sucked back into falling out of it again, and then realize I got to get myself back in. Okay, so when I again started to do that, I'm doing the same thing every day. I'm as simplistic of a person as they can be. I'm getting up. I have pretty much a very similar like routine every day where it entails, I had integrated at that time more therapy with an EMDR therapist 2 to 3 times a week because I needed a little bit more help after I realized that my mom had been lying about me my whole life. And potentially lied about who my real father is. That took another little turn, but what happened is I was integrating all this great, self-care stuff again. And instead of my brother and sister-in-law being happy for me, they in turn start a fight with me one night with my niece and basically give me 2 weeks to leave their house. And I had no money to be able to do that in 2 weeks. That was never the plan. And they just decided and she even said to me, what is it that you're doing in the day when you leave? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I've told you what I'm doing. I tell you every day and it's the same thing. And I felt like I was on repeat, that you were getting annoyed of me saying it. So how are you asking me when I've been telling you every day for 3 months what I'm doing? And so, but again, what that was this defensive reaction because they're like, what is it that you're doing? Like, lazy, selfish is what you're doing. You must be doing something nefarious and you must be doing something like that is just up to no good. Why? I've never been that person. So why in your wildest dreams is that happening right now? And but that's what your 3D kind of wants to go into that type of mode. But what it really is again, they're seeing you do something that is very foreign. It's an alien to them. And where is a narcissist's main emotion? Probably at fear. So their natural reaction is going to be to kind of come at you for you being in. So this again then reminded me, wow, I was so lucky how in the first 2 years, 7 years ago when I started this healing, that I was able to be in this beautiful flow state. And in total time, 6 years, but where I had this 2 years of just this beautiful time before it kind of got a little rough, just, where the bumps started coming back again because I had to learn how to integrate spiritual protection and cleanliness and all that spiritual side of daily living as well. But I go back to thinking back and I was like, that was the prerequisite. That was my, again, it was almost like it's not, I know foreshadowing again is probably not the appropriate word in this scenario, but basically it was the start. Like I needed to have that experience that I was just guided into, and I just kind of surrendered into it and allowed myself to just go with that feeling and allow myself to finally listen to my gut and my inner self And it just happened. But I had been thinking about this as I had that situation then happen where here I'm going up and down after I'm realizing who my family really is, and then, had to, pull back my self-care routine. When I wasn't in self-care mode, when they would pull me out of it, I would notice my health would go down. Everything, like things around me got weird and chaotic. But when I could bring my self-care back into my daily again, things start flowing, things are in balance again. And I think that this information is just really important to talk about more real. In a real way, where you're getting real life examples of one person's experience to, again, maybe plant a seed to help you through something that maybe you're trying to get through. And if you do resonate with this message, then you are dealing with this. And if you can't see it yet, you're on the path. And also, just FYI, if you're seeing this message, if you're seeing any of my messages anytime, know that you are one of the most amazing people, and you are doing such an amazing job. I don't yet have the words and know how to speak to my tribe, my family, because to me, like, I'll start crying right now if I really start thinking about this, because to me, that's what I'm doing right now, is finding my family right now as I do this, because I know that my family now consists of people that can understand my experience, my story, my truth. And those of you that do get this, you are on an amazing path. And you might be going through some rough things right now. Like, this is a time period where we are dealing with, it was just 41 on the clock, so confirmation. We are going through, coming up to that time period where some beings can be more prone to like depression and those holiday blues. One thing I want to throw out there for you is when I started this 7 years ago, I also stopped celebrating holidays. For me at the time, the reason I had to do it back then is because it was hard for me to be okay. Like, those would be the times I would cry and get really sad that my family wasn't around, even though they, were not good for me at the time. And I did, but so as a way to try to make it less sad, I made it just a holiday for me and my cats, or not even a holiday. We wouldn't celebrate it. At first, I would just make different types of food on Thanksgiving, stop celebrating Thanksgiving because that's a joke. And, and all the holidays they're all marketing ploys. They're all ploys for the Matrix to keep you in a space so they can siphon your energy. That is it. That is all. And so luckily I was able to see that and get those downloads about holidays. So again, the universe was giving me a favor, even though when I first started not celebrating, in my mind, it was, for a different reason, to try to not feel so sad about not being with my dysfunctional family. And again, that's only sad because you even though they are hurting you, that's all you know. So you're like, well, then that's what I'm trying to do, is just, I want somebody around. But see, that's where you have to learn how to separate yourself from codependency too. And was one of the first areas that I got a grasp on right away. And I was so happy about that, because that's a big one. And that one can really keep you held down for a while too, until you can release that, like they all can. And so they're all just lessons, obstacles we're learning how to overcome, right? And 44, even on the clock, now we're at 4404. So lots of fours. And what was I just going to try to say here? Hold on one sec. Okay, so that's what I was going to say is that even though this time of year can be, can bring on depression and sadness for people, it's about changing your perception. So like I was kind of mentioning, certain things that I would do is I started just making my own, like I would work on holidays because I had cultivated, like I had mentioned, a career at the time that allowed me to pick and choose when I worked. And for me, if I could make money on the holidays, why not? And so I'd be a lot of the time spending it with animals. And that was great. And then, what was I going to say? But like taking out the holiday, because it literally is the matrix siphoning energy, creating something else to get yourself excited for that time, So, like I was mentioning, I just created, certain things with my animals that I would do. But again, the other thing that helped me with this was the self care. I got into these routines where I enjoyed my days. I started loving being by myself so much that I was like, wow, had I known about how fun this is to be by yourself and being in the self-care flow state space, I wish I could have been doing this all my life. It's so much fun. And, for the first time, I didn't feel like I needed somebody else around to complete me. I was completing myself. So when you finally start falling into that, every day just becomes a day to celebrate. It's like all the days, it's like everybody, all the unawakened people are like, oh, this holiday and this holiday. And you're just kind of let it walk. You're like, oh, yeah, you're doing that. And I'm excited for this day because it's another day, like, and I'll be excited for that day when you're excited for that reason, but I'll be excited for it because it's another day that I get to be in flow state and self-care and, figure out new and different things and creative ideas that I want to do for myself. So I'm going to take a second to make sure that I haven't forgotten anything. Hold on. Okay. So I do want to say, I challenge those of you that may be going through, like a hard time right now, or where, if you're dealing with a sadness or depression, this is a time where what depression means is your body is needing deep rest. It just means that it's self-care time. And you just need to find other ways for self-care. And, for me, I'm able to, tune in on that for myself. I would be able to tune in on that for anybody. If people were having a hard time figuring it out for themselves. But ultimately what the goal would be, let's just say, I was to offer out help for that, for somebody. Ultimately, I would, help you learn how to do that for yourself, because we all can do this. But again, if we're not used to that, it can be a hard jump. And I know that I was fortunate enough to manifest what I manifested for myself, but we can all do that too. And the way that happened, again, that's something I intuitively can help others with too. But ultimately, the goal always is to teach you how to do that for yourself, or to help guide you into learning how to understand how to do that for yourself. So I'm going to take one other second here because I just wanted to hit on that last, and then 1 minute. I forgot to round my story off here really quick. So where I'm at, since leaving my brother and sister-in-laws back this spring, it took me a minute to have to learn how, because I finally was in a place where I did have my own house now. I didn't have just a bedroom or just a couch or only an outdoor park. I had a whole house to myself that I could do this self-care again, and reintegrate this self-care back into my routine. And it took a minute again. And this is after years. So the reason I speak on this is because, again, it's not easy. And I think that people need to be more honest about this, because if you know this, then you kind of know that Our race is not a quick one. Ours is a marathon. It is for everybody, but ours especially is. And that's okay. We have a lot more we're trying to unlearn to relearn. And in order for new to come in, old has to go. And until you can figure that out, you got to start with self-care. Self-care is one of the things that helps to get you there. Very important, very mandatory. And I challenge you all to start something tomorrow. If you're not in a space where you can do that all day, 5 minutes. Start with 5 minutes, saying, I'm going to take 5 minutes today and I'm going to do whatever it is, whether it's write, read, sit there and breathe, laugh, cry, whatever it is. I mean, whatever it is you want to do. Not make sure it's only what you would want to do, not what somebody else wants you to do. And then you build from that. Okay. I feel like that was everything I wanted to discuss about self-care. Before I end, I do just want to take one last second here just to make sure I covered everything I wanted to. I did want to just add, it was just 50-50 on the clock, but I wanted to add that self-care also is ensuring that you're adding 2 to 3 liters of water into your daily, especially right now with all the DNA upgrades and all the light codes being activated and the DNA activations. It's very, very important right now that we're getting lots of water. And if there's other, liquids being consumed, as long as you are trying to get more water in than you typically would, just you're at the path, you're at your path and where you're supposed to be. And wherever that is, that's exactly where you're supposed to be. And so I hope that this message resonates for some of you. And if it does, if you don't mind leaving a comment about, your thoughts, I would appreciate it. And if any of you are utilizing self-care yet, if you have any questions about it, feel free to put those in there. I am more than happy to speak more on this. I just wanted to ensure that some information was out there about how important it is, because I've got to experience it without it and with it and without it and with it again. And it is now my experience is you can't go without it. So share this message with somebody who needs some self-care. Thank you so much for watching, and I am sending all my love.